Michael Cummings here with BlazePod. Welcome to our Logic series. Creating a custom BlazePod activity is easy. The first step is choosing the foundation, or as we call it, the light logic. This is the program type that you will choose to best meet your needs. In this series, you'll learn all about each light logic and the reason why you would choose each one. Today, we're going to dive into our most popular pro logic, focus. So how does the focus logic work? Multiple pods will light up at the same time, but only one pod is the player's pod, and all the other pods light up to distract the player with different colors or by not lighting up at all. Go ahead and select Choose, and let's get tapping. You can add several stations, and each station will have the same activity running in parallel. So if you have 6 pods and the activity uses only 3 pods, you can effectively run 2 stations of that same activity, each running at the same time. The number of pods is the amount of pods you'll be using for the activity per each station. Select the number of pods you want to use. Notice the indication lights flashing on the ones you've selected. This feature helps set up our activity with ease. If you select multiple colors per player, the pods will indicate as such. If you select multiple stations, station 1 will light up first with the correct indication lights, followed by station 2 and so on, with a brief pause before returning back to station 1. Now you know how many pods you will be using in the activity and that only one player pod will light up. How many distracting pods do you want to light up for your activity? Adding distraction lights may enhance the user's focus. Paying attention to the correct colored pod while disregarding the non-relevant ones, the more distraction, the more challenging the drill. Having some of the pods not light up is another great way to add difficulty. Now let's swipe or tap next and move on to the colors and light rules setting. Selecting more than one color per player advances the activity and will enhance each player's potential for improving their cognitive skills. Adding multiple colors allows you to designate a function that you want the player to perform when they see that particular color. This can really benefit active memory and reflexive cognition, or the ability to be a more flexible thinker. Seeing the visual cue of each pod light up may help improve your spatial awareness and reaction time. The more you use BlazePod, the faster and more efficiently you may be able to respond to visual cues in all scenarios. Reaction time is a 3-step process. Your brain needs to first recognize a stimulus. In this case, it's a visual light stimulus. Then it has to process what its next move is going to be. After the processing happens, the body then reacts in response to what the brain chose as the correct course of action. The faster you can recognize, process, and respond accurately is the path towards peak human performance. Now it's time to decide how many distracting colors we want to appear randomly along with the player's designated pod. Next up, choose the player that will be doing the activity by tapping on the name. Make sure to add each new player to your list so you can save all the results individually to analyze improvement. You can also choose teams if you have more than one player performing a single player activity, like this soccer team warm-up drill. You can change the specific player colors and distracting pod colors by tapping on the color circles. Be strategic about the colors you choose. Make sure not to choose the same color for the player pod and the distracting pods. That said, you may want the colors to be similar, like red, orange, and pink, to make the activity more challenging or to prevent the user from making impulsive decisions without thinking. Now let's move on to lights out. Lights out is basically choosing the way in which the pod's light is turned off. Is it with a physical tap? You can also choose a combination of whatever happens first. If the pod is tapped out before the time runs out, it registers a hit. Otherwise, it registers a miss hit. I like to use this function when trying to get someone to increase their intensity and move faster. This creates a sense of urgency and pressure to respond within a certain time frame. It's a great way to intensify an activity. And now to the final setting on this screen, the light delay time. The time between a pod's light going out and when the next pod lights up. In many cases, you'll want the next pod to light up immediately, in which case you'll choose the none option. You can add a fixed delay time if you want the participant to have time to return to an ideal starting position. The random light delay option is great because you can simply choose a range from 0 seconds to 10 seconds or anything in between, and the app will randomly choose a time between the minimum and maximum times that you set. This option is also great for helping players wait and think before they go and make the right decision as quickly as possible. Or if you want to work on a player's anticipation or response time, this option gives you a true reaction time. Now let's swipe or tap next to finalize the activity. Firstly, you'll need to decide if you want to add a strikeout to the activity. And if so, how many strikes would trigger a strikeout and automatically end the activity? A strike occurs every time a distracting pod is tapped out instead of the player's pod. You have 3 options to choose how or when the activity ends. Do you want the activity to end after a certain length of time? Or maybe after a certain number of successful hits? Or whichever comes first, trying to complete a certain amount of hits before the time runs out? Sounds simple, but carefully consider what works best for the goals and intent of your activity. And finally, cycles. You can think of cycles like sets in weight training. Do you want the activity to run a number of times automatically with a rest period between the cycles? This option is great if you're running a drill for a number of sets before moving on to the next one. Once your activity is set, it's ready to use. You can start immediately. You can manually start the activity from the app or select Start on Hit. The Start on Hit option is great if you want to place the device down and get into position, or if you're training a group and want the drill to run self-sufficiently. If you have the Pro membership, you can save the activity and use it over and over again, or share it. Now go get creative and have fun designing your own activities. Enjoy.